Okay, so here I'm going to show a few techniques for outputting imagery from Rhino using really simple hidden line and rendering tools and then superimposing those in Photoshop. So what we're aiming for is an image kind of like this. It's a composite of line work and renderings, and you can see that I've got 3 layers here in Photoshop. There's a line work layer that has different line weights and different line types, and then there's a layer that's just all tone but no shadow, and then a layer that's tone plus shadow. And I've got these at various transparencies so that what I can do is I can actually adjust the density of the shadow and the overall density of the tone behind the line work. I'll show how we'll get to this. This is the file that I've got going. It's essentially one half I contour cut and then turn those into surfaces, and I made those transparent, and then the other half is just the typical surfaces of the bottle seen from the inside. And the way that I made these contours transparent is I've got them on their own layer, and that layer I set the transparency by clicking on its material properties and then setting the transparency here. And so I can go from 0 to 100 and adjust it that way. And right now I get a kind of visual feedback of the transparency because I'm in the rendered preview. If I was just in the regular shaded viewport, it would look sort of like this. But if you right click on the title bar for your window and go to rendered, then you'll actually start to see transparencies. So the way that I've got this set up is I've got a few different layers. I've also got a base layer, and that's going to catch the shadows. And I've also got a light layer, and that's going to give us the shadows. And so to start with, let's just do the line work, and we'll have that be the first part of this exercise. And the first thing to do is to set up a view that we want. And what I want to do is, rather than being the typical perspective view, in this case I actually want to be in an axonometric view. And the way that we can do that is by right-clicking on this title bar, going down to Viewport Properties, and then choosing Parallel as opposed to Perspective. And so now we're in an axonometric view. And then once I find the view that I want, what I want to do is save that. And I can save that by right-clicking again and going to Set View, Named Views, Save. I'll call this like A3. And so what's nice about that is that when you move away, you can always get that view back just by typing in the title of it. So keeping a kind of short name for the views is always handy. And because I've got this saved, now what I can do is I can create line work, I can create renderings, and I always know I've got the same view and I can match them up. So what I'm going to do is select all of this and do a Make 2D. I'll do it from the current view, and I don't need any of these options. So I hit OK. And then you'll notice that it drops everything down onto the construction plane. So I'll just pull that over to the side, and it shows up down here on this Make 2D Visible Lines layer. And the next step is to just clean it up a little bit. There's a bunch of lines in here that I don't need, that were just used for building the surfaces. I can start to get rid of those. Maybe I'll trim that a little bit. Just something kind of like that. So that's a good start, and this side over here looks fine. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to actually vary the line weights. So if you look on here, I've got a heavier line, and then I've got lighter line. So the heavy line is for the outline, and I'm also using it for the section cut. And I've got a heavier line on this side as well. And you can do that by copying this over. And then now I'm just going to go and get rid of all the stuff that I don't need. I'm only going to keep this for the heavy lines. something kind of like that. And so now to differentiate these, what I'll do is I'll make all of these. I've got a layer here called lines thin. I'll put it on there. Hitting F3, switching that over, and then I'll put this on lines thick. And so now when I put this on top, I've essentially got those two things, you know, one on top of another. And then what I want to do, and so now, like, how do you actually determine what the thickness of these are? You can do that by going over here under the layers to its print width. And so for thin, I've got the print width set to 0.25. For the thick, I've got it set to 0.5, so double that. And then I also want to create this dashed line right here. And I can do that by, I'll just do this on a new layer. I'll just call it dashed 2. Make it gold. Make it active. And here, I'm just going to draw a line from there to there. I'm just going to scale it down a little bit by, like, say, 0.9. And then copy it, put one down here. And because those are on this dashed line layer, if I change the line type by clicking here under the line type menu, I can change it to center. It's going to show up as a dashed line. And if I want to change the scale of that dash, what I can do is go to Tools, Options, Line Types, change the scale to 2, so it's going to get a little bit bigger. So I've got the dashed lines, I've got a heavy line under here, and then I've got my medium line, and I've got a final version of it sort of over here, so you can see how I went and did the outline there. And so now what I can do is set this up in the window, go to File, Print, and normally you might have it set to a printer. You can switch it either to Adobe PDF or to an image file. Either one would work, and you can open it in Photoshop. You know, adjust your resolution. I'm just going to set it to 200 for right now. It might show up as a kind of print color where it's actually showing the line colors, and you can switch that to black and white, and then everything else should be fine. Hit print, desktop, just save it as a JPEG, just call it 1. So now when I open that, you can see that the line work comes in. So then the next step is going to be bringing in the tone, and I'll show that in the next video.